Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Be Heard, Empower Yourself. And today we have a return guest, one of my very good friends who I love very much, Josette Veltri. And she has written several books. I have read a couple of them. One of them was Next Step, New Start, Awaken What's Possible One Day at a Time. And that offers insights into navigating life's changes and transitions. And it emphasizes resilience and healing, which I had to go through many years ago and still am. And so we're going to have a nice chat. Hi, Josette. How are you today?
I'm good. I'm good. How are you?
I'm here.
Good. Okay. I'm glad to hear that, Marie.
I always say if I wake up and I can get out of bed and walk into the kitchen and get my coffee, I'm good.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So let's talk about, you did write. How many books did you write?
Oh, wow. Let's see. I have one, two, three, four, five.
I know you have a lot.
More than five.
I
Yeah.
know, more than five, half a dozen or six of the other. So how did like your personal experiences influence your writing?
Okay. So I think we talked about this on the other
We
episode
did.
that we had. I lost my husband when I was 26 years old in 11 days, and I was raising two children. And I started understanding that I had to be their motive, their mentor,
Mentor.
their example of life is going to happen, and how we perceive life to happen, that is going to be how we're going to manage our emotions of stress and anxiety. So I started writing this everyday notification to them, little notes.
Mhm.
And that's how it basically evolved. And I still do a blog today. Not that I want people to respond. It's not a communication avenue. It's think about this. How are you managing your day? Like you have a gratitude, which I really admire, that every day you wake up and say, if I wake up and get my coffee, I'm grateful,
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now I would think, well, I know for a fact, because I had to start anew several times in my life. And my one daughter became a widow at 28 years old with two children. So I know it's difficult to do this. So what kind of strategies did you had to develop certain strategies, and what do you recommend for people that are facing unexpected, difficult changes in their life?
Well, part of transitioning when I work with my clients is part of it. I tell them they have to first of all identify what they're going through, label it, right? And when you do grief, loss of any kind, whether it's a breakup of a marriage, a loss of a loved one, loss of a job, any transition. We're going through transitions every single day.
Yeah.
The question is, what am I thinking? And what is my perception based on this particular event? So when you're waking up in the morning and being grateful, right,
Mhm.
you're directing your mind to think grateful thoughts.
Mindset. That's mindset. That's what they call it
That's,
these days.
that's
And
exactly right.
I lost five friends this year. Five. And two was illness, one had cancer, and she was in her 90s. But my very dear friend, and another one, a car accident, so totally unexpected. In fact, you know her, she's community. And I was just handling it just in a very static way. I didn't cry. And one morning I woke up depressed, so depressed. And I got up and I got my coffee and I said, why are you depressed? Just so easy to label it. Why are you depressed? So I sat down and I said, Mimi, you lost 5 friends in 3 months. That's why you're depressed. You're grieving. I'm grieving. So
That's a-
that is so true about think about it before you can do anything else, right?
right, right.
So now, after you label it, what do you do next? You know,
Well, I recommend that after you label it, you just did it. You started the process, but we're not going through the process of, okay, so and I don't like to use the word depressed because that has a whole different meaning, but I would say
yeah,
extensive sadness.
I'll
I'm
take that.
feeling I'm feeling very sad, or I really have this great sadness, this heaviness, because
Yeah,
grief in itself is heavy. It's a
yeah,
heaviness that we carry.
yeah,
So once we label it and give ourselves self-compassion, which you did, wow, Marie, you're feeling this way because you just lost 3 friends.
yeah.
I recommend sitting down and writing yourself a self-compassion letter
Oh,
and expressing your emotions in writing. You could
yeah.
journal it. And I'm not saying, it's got to be perfect, but expressing your emotions some way moves the energy out of our body because our body holds trauma, and it holds trauma from when we're very young.
Yes, it does.
Yes.
Yeah,
So if we're not offering ourselves the ability to move that trauma out of our body by writing, and writing is a very good way of just expressing all of our emotions, our anger, our depression, our sadness, our bargaining,
mm.
right? Our accept.
Bros, darling. I don't know why.
Because it's very hard for me to express
Mhm.
this reality of the death. So
Yeah,
I do
oh,
highly
that's true.
recommend it.
Journaling, writing it out. I
Right.
will. And when you brought up trauma from it could be from an early age. Trauma can be something that you don't consciously even remember happened, but your body does. We talked about that book before, The Body Keeps the Score. I think you might be the one that told me about that book. And
Yes.
it's so true. And I had traumatic things happen to me. I had one thing when I was 5 years old, which I do remember. I don't remember anything else from my childhood. I kind of blacked it out until I was a teenager. And then, of course, I had a lot of horrible things, attempted assault of the grade. He didn't succeed, but it was a violent encounter. I had a lot of things. And I, being uninformed and naive and not having good role models in my parents, I self-medicated for years with alcohol, and I got sober 33 years ago in May. And once I got sober, then they started talking to me about my chronic depression and anxiety disorder caused by trauma from my childhood, from my young adulthood, and how now that I'm sober, I need to go to counseling and I need to deal with those things.
Correct. And I
So,
love the word, I have to deal with it.
yeah,
Because part of grief or loss or trauma is accepting the reality of it, but also dealing with the pain of it.
yeah,
And
yeah.
that's hard. And
It
that's where
is.
a lot of people avoid. They distract themselves with or try to numb the pain through alcohol and drugs or TV binging, or because they don't want to face their pain.
I know. And I was what they call functional drunk because I ran a business. I raised 2 children on my own without child support. I got 2 years of college in before I got sober.
Mhm.
So, people would say we'd be out or we'd be in night bar, and people would say, "Let Marie drive. She's sober." I drank more than they did. I was not sober.
Right, right,
I
right.
was one of those people that just seemed like I was, my persona didn't change that much with the alcohol, so they didn't, and I didn't fall down or slur my words.
Of course, of course.
So later on in life, when things happened and I realized something was wrong and I did go to treatment, what a blessing. What a blessing. Because, first of all, they had to medically detox me or I would have died. And then, of course, they gave me the big book, which I could not believe that the first time I read that book. I was like, where was this book 20 years ago when I needed it? But they say when the student is ready, the teacher will appear.
Always,
Yeah.
always.
And I had to go through enough of doing it my way and being stoic, and I can handle anything and I don't need anybody. That's what I had to do before I finally hit a bottom. So getting into the present, it's a volatile world that we are living in right now. There's just free floating anxiety everywhere. You can't help it. And
Correct.
not just here, in every country. And it's an unusual situation that we are in the United States. And it's like there's no right choice. It's it's like lesser of two evils, a situation where you have to pick lesser of two evils.
True. Right. That's
And
true.
and that's causing a lot of stress and anxiety. And even for myself, um, I try not to, I call it time travel. Like, I
Mhm.
don't want to be a what if.
Right.
What if this happened? Oh my gosh, there'll be civil war. What if this happens? Oh, there'll probably still be civil war. Like, that's not a good thing to do. I try to stay in today and leave the rest up to a higher power, whatever you want that to be. And I think that's all I can do.
That's exactly right. That's all you could do. And that is live in the present moment and avoid those thinking thoughts of what if this happens and what if this person gets, because anxiety comes when we're in the future.
Exactly.
Because we're uncertain. I don't know. Listen, I don't even know what's going to happen at 1 o'clock today. But
True.
I'm not going to stay in that ruminating thought of, well, what if 1 o'clock happens and I don't have this going on and I don't have that. So I try and I fail just like everybody else. I'm human, but catch myself.
Mhm.
And the body has a tendency of hearing the mind or the thoughts in the mind before we do, before we're consciously aware of it.
Yeah.
So mindful awareness is saying, okay, what am I feeling right now? I'm feeling anxious. Okay, why am I anxious? Well, I'm thinking thoughts of the future. Don't go there.
No,
You don't have the answers. You
no,
don't know why, right?
I
And
know.
if we go into the past, we bring up all of these kinds of unresourceful choices that we made, and we make ourselves feel so guilty and so
Guilty.
regretful. And, we get caught up in that,
Yes.
that we walk around with our shoulders down, just
Mm-hmm.
have sad thoughts after sad
Right.
thoughts. But if we're right now, and I always say my biggest three phrases is just for now. Just for now, all is well. Just for now, I'm
This
okay.
moment, just in this moment.
Correct.
Whenever I had a very difficult time getting through college because my parents refused to help me go to college. And my dream was to be an English teacher, and it got squashed. And the only way to get out of my home in the 60s was to get married, which they even tried to stop that.
Right, right.
But I bring that up because I did get my bachelor's degree. It took me many years because in between I had children. And so whenever I find myself going into that, oh, if only I had gone to college when I was 17, 18, because my husband did and became a teacher. And I'd say, I'd be getting this nice pension like he gets every month. And whenever I do that, I say, now wait, if that happened, You wouldn't have married the father of your children, so you wouldn't have those beautiful girls. You wouldn't have the 4 beautiful grandchildren you have, and you wouldn't have the amazing great grandson that you have. That's what I do with it. I just play it to the end, like,
Right,
eh,
right,
right?
right, right. And that's really the only way that we can sustain what's going on in the world right now. Listen, I have no control. I can't, the only thing that I can control is my emotions and my thoughts and my behaviors. And
Yeah.
I believe that if we send out energy of love and joy and peace into the world through our thoughts and our own energy and just the intention of, okay, so this is happening in the world. I'm going to send love and peace and joy and just stay in that moment and just visualize peace and joy covering whatever your intention for that moment is. I believe, and it has been proven, that that energy, the vibration of our energy just goes on and on and on. It's like when you throw a rock in the ocean, in the water or a
Mhm.
lake, right? The
Mhm.
lake is still. Throw that thought in that water and it just goes on and on and on.
And it's like the butterfly effect too.
Correct.
And
Correct.
and the thing of it is, what I have read in my research, that 80%, what you're talking about is coming from your heart.
Right.
And 80% of the world's population is in their head, not in
Right.
their 20% is like us. I mean, not that we're never in our head, but we do mindfulness, we do mindset, we do meditation, we do gratitude. We send out vibes, good vibes. I mean, I'll give you an example. When I'm driving, and this happens all the time, every day, and especially in Florida, and you put your blinker on, you're going to change lanes. And sure enough, the guy behind you all of a sudden speeds up. Well, not the guy behind you, the guy in the lane you want to go into, speeds up his car so you can't do it. And I think, now, why did you do that? Then he gets past you, you get in that lane, and he goes to the right. He goes over, like he had no reason to do that at all. Now, a lot of people get upset, and that's where the road rage comes in, things like that. I don't. I just bless them, the Southern, bless his heart. But funny thing happened to me yesterday. I went to physical therapy, and we have a white Sonata, a Hyundai Sonata. And I usually park in the same place. Well, I hadn't that day. And I come out of therapy when it's done, and I go over and I open the car door. There's a man sitting in the seat. I opened the wrong door, the wrong car. There's so I went, oh, I'm so sorry. He said, oh, that's okay. I said, there's too many white cars in Florida. Everybody drives a white car. And he said, it's no problem. I said, well, at least you didn't shoot me. Now, now at the time it was funny, but it's happened.
Yeah.
It's actually happened. So we do live, like you say, you never know what's going to happen. 2 o'clock in the afternoon, you open the wrong car door and something bad could happen. But you can't live your life thinking like that. And what
No.
did I do? What I always do. One of my coping mechanisms is humor. So I immediately joked about it and he laughed.
Right. Right. Right.
But someone else, so that's the world we live in. People are very anxious, most of them, a lot of them, you know.
Well, yeah, they are, but they also give in to that narrative that and they're always, like you said, not using their values of humor or their values of confidence or their values of bravery or their values of self-awareness. That's the other thing. You walked out of the doctor's office and you were thinking of something totally different and you opened the wrong car door. But what happens if you would have mindfully walked And that's where a lot of the elderly, and I hate, or the individuals who are not mindfully aware fall.
Yeah.
Because their mind is over there and their
Yes.
feet are over here and they're not watching where they're going.
Actually, and the other day, I almost tripped 3 times. And
Right.
each time I looked down after it happened, and here was a bump in the road that I didn't see, something in the sidewalk that I didn't see. I mean, unfortunately, I have to make sure I look down because I have extreme osteoporosis. And if
Yeah,
I
yeah,
fall, I'm in big trouble,
right,
But
right,
it's like 3 times. Okay, you better get a little more mindful today.
right, right,
You
right,
can't just trot around, you have to pay attention to the ground.
right,
Yeah, get
right,
grounded.
right,
Get
correct,
grounded.
yeah.
So the other thing I want to ask you, you're a writer, of course, and you write self-help books, I would call it, right? Self-help books. And do you have any tips for people that want to write? I've had people calling me lately now that I'm getting more well known in Palm Beach County. I mean,
Right,
worldwide yet. And they want to write and they want to know how to write. And I'm like, I can't teach you how to write. I cannot teach you how to write. I said, and what do you want to write? Do you want to write fiction or nonfiction? And so many people think they have a book in them, and maybe they do, but they might not have the ability or the talent to actually put it on paper, you know. So, what can I say to these aspiring writers that I have not already told you?
well, I began my writing career with I went to a course out in Sedona,
Yeah.
Arizona.
Mhm.
And, they taught the steps, because there are steps for you to kind of put together something. You
Yeah.
just, just write. And one of the things that they told me, or they told the class, is if you think you're going to make $1 million from writing, you're in the wrong class. That's
Yeah.
what they said.
Yeah.
They said you have to write because you want to write. You have
Exactly.
to write because you have a story inside your heart that you want people to hear.
Mhm.
And the lessons that you've learned in life, you want to teach other people so that they don't make the same mistakes that you made, or the wrong, unresourceful choices that
Right.
you've made.
Right.
So that in mind, that's how I started.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing with me. It was different because it's a memoir and my first book. And my therapist, my counseling that I had to go in because of 2020 and Parkinson's and she had told me that after 4 o'clock, when my husband seems to communicate a lot less, and I get very upset. She said, go in and write. And I said, I'm not a writer. She said, everybody can be a writer. It doesn't matter what you write. You go in and you just start typing. Well, the easiest thing to do was to start talking about my childhood and my life. And that became a book. It didn't start out being a book.
Right,
You know, it
right,
just
right,
it just happened. And most of your famous authors and writers and painters, they didn't make money till they were dead. Their family might have got some money, but that's usually what happens.
right.
In their time that they live in, they are struggling artists. So I laugh because at the end of the month, I get a check from Amazon. And some months it's $35. One month it was 200. Another month it might be $17. But I said to my husband, I'm a successful writer because some people don't get anything,
Correct,
right? Right.
correct.
So this one woman in particular is driving me crazy. So she's calling me and I'm trying to advise her. But I said to her, "Did you read my book?" No, but I heard about it. And I heard you're a good writer. So I thought you could help me. And I said, well, why don't you read my book first? So you see what style my writing is, and then call me. And she said, why do I have to read your book? I thought, oh, woman, you want me to help you for free and you won't even buy the book. So I'm like, no, go to writing school.
Well, here's the other thing that they can do. Every library has a writing club.
Yes, there
And
is.
so,
I know
yeah,
where
so,
there's one. Mhm. I'm
yeah,
going to send her there next
right,
time she calls. I'm going to
right.
send her. I said it's free. She tells me she has no money. Now, I bet you dollars to donuts when I tell her about the one in Royal Palm Beach, she's going to say she doesn't try. All right,
Yeah.
before we run out of time. So I want to talk about self-talk. I talk to myself and if I'm home, I talk out loud. And it's not because I'm crazy. People think, oh, you're talking to yourself, you're crazy. No, I just find comfort in saying things to myself out loud. It helps me. It's my way to cope with anxiety or stress or something
Yeah.
terrible. And I'm listening to Matthew Perry's book. Now he died, of course, from addiction. And he was telling a funny story that he ran into Jeff Goldberg. That's name, Jeff Goldberg, the actor. You know who I'm talking about. Jeff
Yeah.
Gold. Yeah, he's kind of a quirky guy, but very intelligent. And he said he came into the men's room and Matthew was at a urinal, of course, and he went to the other urinal and he was talking to himself the whole time he was in there. And he's a millionaire and he's married and he's happy. And I don't think he's crazy. Because when I hear him on talk shows, he's brilliant, you know. But you can also do it in your mind,
Correct.
self-talk. But tell us a little bit about how important that is, self-talk.
Well, okay. So first of all, self-talk is talking to our inner child.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
And what we're doing is we're avoiding um, having somebody else do that inner critic talk, right?
Mm, mm,
So what we want to do is we want to say to our inner child, because our inner child has these sacred wounds. And what we're doing is we're encouraging ourselves by just having that conversation. So my suggestion is that I usually do self-talk by admitting my values. So I'll say, okay, Josette, I am courageous. And when I think this thought, I replace it with, I am courageous. You don't have to have big conversations with yourself. You just have to admit your values and not give in to the emotions, because the inner critic is always working. And if you look at the mind as a boardroom, one side is all your values, one side is all your emotions. Who's going to win? Well, the one you pay attention to. It's like that wolf story.
yeah, yeah,
The one you feed is the one you're going to learn from.
yes,
So
yeah.
I believe that anything that comes after I am,
Mhm. And then we can rebound and adapt.
your inner child hears that. And it's
Yeah.
your inner child that needs the nurturing, and your inner child that needs love and self-acceptance and validation.
hmm
And at a boy or at a
Yeah.
girl, you
My
know,
um I have a thing about if I'm in the kitchen or if I'm doing anything, I don't want anybody standing over me or watching me. I have a thing. And it comes from my childhood and it comes from my father. I know where it comes from, you know,
right.
but I still feel the feeling. So like in Jerry with the Parkinson's, he's a little bit more in need of being close to me, I guess. And I'll be in the kitchen and he'll be right there making dinner. And I kick him out. I go, get out of the kitchen. I'm making dinner. Go sit down. But I cannot handle it because of my father. And he would criticize me a lot. But see, I know what it is. I know what triggers it, you know.
But here, let me just mention something about that, because
Please.
You know, when you say to somebody, get out of the kitchen, I'm cooking dinner, that's a command.
It's
And
true.
right, but you want to, and you know how it feels because your father spoke to you that way. What
Mm.
if you were to say, Jerry, I really would appreciate if you go sit down because I'm right now cooking dinner for us.
Well, I do sometimes, and usually we have a rapport by now. We're together a
Yeah,
long
I'm
time.
sure I'm sure you do. But
Yeah,
you
and
know, when I hear
yeah,
that, I
yeah,
always have to remind people that, you know, you have to talk from the heart, not from
yeah.
the head.
Oh, yeah. But with us, it's more like a joking banner that we do where, it's not mean spirited, and sometimes I do say it softer, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
Um, but the thing of it is what I've changed, and this is good. Now when he does it, I say, oh, since you're here, would you get an onion and chop it for me? Mm. Bonanza, right?
That's a good thing. Cooperation, right?
I don't kick him out and I get something out of it.
Right, 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 right.
So that's how you have to look at things in a positive, see the positive. All right, he's in here all the time. Let's give him some chores and make
And
it worthwhile to both of us.
it's hard. Being a caregiver is very stressful.
Yeah, yeah. And he is very aware of where he is with his illness, which is stressful for both of us because it's almost like if you didn't know it'd be better, but you know what the train is coming down the track and you see what it is and there's nothing you can do about it except being today. And that's what I do with him. I might have told the story to you. I told it to somebody. We were out having tea in a very nice little place and just sitting there, and they had nice music on, and we were drinking our tea, which we aren't really tea drinkers, but it was like just to be something different. And I was holding his hand, and I turned to him and I said, "We're creating a moment." And he smiled because in the end, that's all you have is moments.
That's right.
Yeah. So, what's your latest book called?
Oh,
The
well, I
last
don't
one
think I
you,
wrote a latest book. The latest book that I did write is Divorce is Not the End, It's the Beginning.
that's a good title. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
I
So
would like to know.
as a mediator, and I work with people who are divorced, you have to find some collaboration, some middle ground. And
Mhm.
in that book, we kind of share, and it's a small book. It's not, none of my books are, except for, Next Step, New Start. And what the other one that I wrote is the Fundamental Life Skills Program, where it kind of incorporates time management, self-image, career, education, everything
Mhm.
that you need to know is
Right.
compressed in
To get
that. Spirituality is another one.
yeah,
And
yeah.
it is a program,
Mhm.
it's a guide. But
Before we get off, they cut us off on Zoom like crazy. I want people to know your website is called.
I don't have a website
Oh,
because
you did.
I stopped my nonprofit because my business
Oh,
partner, Wally,
I know why. I do.
Wally died,
Yeah.
and he was my financier.
Uh, mm-hmm.
And because he died, I could
Yeah.
not sustain.
Do
So
you?
I had a choice. I could have
Okay.
said, okay, I'll do this or I'll do that. So now I don't have a website because honestly, nobody goes to your website, not to mine.
Okay. You're
Right?
on Facebook?
Most of my information is on LinkedIn.
Okay, good. That's what we need to know before we get cut off. All right, everyone, you can look Josette up on LinkedIn. I thank you for coming, and our time always runs fast because
I
we
know. I
have such
know.
great conversations. So thank you so much for coming, Josette.
You're very welcome. You have a blessed day.
You too, and I'm going to stay in the moment. And it went.